How you doing?
Doing great.
We're here today with the North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, and very glad you joined us here today. And nobody can ever say you're not accessible, which is going to be one of our questions a little bit later here. But first off, how you doing today? Everything going okay?
Yeah, everything's great. We just came out of a full-on day meeting with Governor Dayton from Minnesota.
Oh.
Talking about flood protection here in the Red River Valley, so that was another exciting day.
Do people out west have to worry about that at all? About the states getting involved in another water project and that kind of thing? I heard some people talking about that the other day here, and I said, I don't know if we want to get into that quite yet. So, are we still letting the diversion just kind of see how it goes?
Well, I think there's some issues of litigation between the Army Corps of Engineers and the state of Minnesota and the FM Diversion Authority. So we're trying to sort through those because we believe in collaboration, not litigation. And Governor Dayton's been a good partner in terms of trying to get this process back on track again because this area here, Bakken, incredibly important in North Dakota. On the other end of the state, we've got 21% of the jobs and over 20% of the sales tax in Cass County, and it's highly vulnerable. We saw what happened in Grand Forks 20 years ago. If people don't remember that, I mean, we wiped out. At the time, it was our second largest city, and we, it was pre-Katrina. It was the largest peacetime evacuation in the United States when Grand Forks went under, and we're just trying to avert that kind of catastrophic failure in the future and keep our economic engine here in Fargo rolling forward.
Well, I'm glad to hear that too, because I was going to ask you about an article in the Wall Street Journal a little bit later, but one of the things we're trying to do is we're trying to educate the East and West about how there needs to be a collaboration on everything going forward. And when you came in to the governorship, the gubernatorial office, I saw pretty quickly you recognized how important that oil industry was to the state. I mean, Ed Schaefer was quick to point out 25-30% of the state was tied to the budget, but you saw the future behind it. You saw the future of the UAS, the university systems. And so when I saw you speak at the North Dakota Petroleum Council, I'll admit, half the people's eyes were as big as saucers. The other half's jaws were dropped. And then about a small portion of it was like shaking their fist like, all right, somebody finally is going to do this. Those goals were, it's like you almost laid a challenge down to the oil and gas industry. 2 million barrels a day, 0 spills, a partnership with coal, and then something with natural gas. I was too busy trying to arrange the interview that I'm having right now, so I missed the natural gas one. Let's talk about that a little bit, because I don't think some people realize how close to reality this is. Let's start with 2 million barrels a day.
Well,
where'd you pull that number out of?
Well, it's a nice round number, of course, and it's the next logical sort of stretch milestone for us. But I think when you go back in this state in 2007, when we're doing 30,000 barrels a day, I don't think anybody ever thought a million was possible. And to get from where we are today, I mean, because we're closing in on 1.1 million in September, to get from 1.1 million to 2 million a day is just a math problem. But it's a math problem that the entrepreneurs in this industry are solving, and you solve it through drilling a well in fewer days than you did before, which is what we're doing. We got people drilling wells in 12 to 14 days. It used to take 30 days. And for those that aren't familiar with the Bakken, I mean, when we talk a well in North Dakota, that's a 2-mile vertical and 2-mile lateral, and they're getting that done in 12 to 14 days. So we've got each rig we've got operating now, it's in most cases is producing twice as many wells per month as it used to. So that's one part of the math equation, and then the other part is what do you get out of that well after you've drilled it. And we've had a lot of curves in North Dakota that have been pretty consistent and people have been operating on, but now you've got some of the folks that are working through formulas. Generically, some of those folks are calling them super fracs, but if you're putting more sand and more water down these wells, some people are seeing a big jump in that production curve in terms of what's produced per well. So if you have more wells and more barrels per day per well, that sets you on the path. And when you do the second one, when you have higher productivity, that's going to attract capital. And then also we've made a big step forward. I mean, we got to 1.1 billion barrels a day with a huge constraint on takeaway capacity, and with the resolution on DAPL last year, adding 500,000 plus barrels a day of takeaway capacity. And I've talked to two Well, I've talked to one personally, and then another one that my Lieutenant Governor Brent Sanford, by the way, best Lieutenant Governor in the country. Sorry, all of the Lieutenant Governors, but Brent is fantastic from Watford City. But so between Brent and I, we talked to 2 oil companies that are saying that right now, in the last month, their oil was being purchased at 0 discount to WTI in North Dakota. And so we talked about a few years ago during the boom when we were there was a big spread, and then some of that got brought down by more train loading facilities being built. But a lot of times there was still $5, $6, $7 spread, and the hope with the Dakota Access Pipeline that it might get down to $2. And now I got people telling me there's 0 spread. So that's just that improves the bottom line for the people that are thinking about where do they invest their capital. And so if we can attract the capital, drill more wells per month, and have those wells be more productive, then that puts you on the path to 2 million barrels a day. It's pretty simple.
Is the infrastructure there? I know we got the Davis refinery that just got the air quality permit. They're in a public comment phase. All indications are we're probably going to have a refinery within the next couple of years. They've done a number of pipeline investments. So infrastructure, can we handle 2 million barrels a day?
Well, it's going to take continued investment, but a lot of the work that's been done now in pipelines, in the roads, that's increased our capacity. Some of that's got room to grow, but it'll take more. But it's certainly I think North Dakota has demonstrated to the industry that we've been willing to step up and do our share as a state to help do the public infrastructure to support the private capital that's coming in. So yeah, it'll take more, but it's a path that's very, very doable.
0 spills. I chuckle at this one because everybody right away will scoff and say you can't ever have 0 spills. It's not that far fetched, is it?
Well, it isn't, but again, I would certainly call this aspirational.
It's a goal. Yes.
It's an aspirational thing, and it's the same way I like to think about highway traffic safeties. We ought to have a vision of having 0 deaths, just like we do in the airline industry. I mean, the airline industry made a commitment years ago, and people thought it was going to be impossible to have impeccably safe air travel, and yet we